Hello everybody and welcome to the next instalment of Fringe Play Friday. I'm Richard.
And I'm Mitchell, and this week we're using the card Leblanc for our Fringe plays. So we decided that the combo of Logos, Ormi and Leblanc was what we were going to base our decks around. So here you can see today that I was playing the Earth Wind variant, and I'm up against a standard unit deck.
So the opponent on the right is Joseph, who's relatively new to playing at our shop, but I think he put in a pretty respectable performance for his first week of organised play.
Yeah, it was very difficult to play against him just because he's new to the game. He was unaware of, I wouldn't say unaware, more he was an unusual playstyle, and because of that unusual playstyle I couldn't work out what to do against him, and it became a very difficult game really early on.
Yeah, especially because he's playing Shem Hazai as well, which is a card that doesn't really see that much playability. Hey, possible future Fringe Play Friday card.
Yeah. I mean, I am a friend of his personally, and knew what he was running in this deck, so I was always aware of that card, and from the first minute I was terrified of it. But as you can see, he starts off strong with a Warrior of Light and Chocobo with the first point of damage, and as you'll probably see in this game, removal is hard to come by in my deck. So I drop a Maria and LeBlanc and just hope he doesn't ever attack.
It is one of the downsides to Earthwind is that there isn't a whole bunch of removal. You can play Ralbarn, you can run Mustadios, which I know you do both off, but outside of that, a lot of your removal comes from combat tricks like Golem, and if you play Monk. Do you play Monk in this?
No, I don't play Monk. If I can just get the deck list up, I can have a look into what I actually do play. But I tended not to have backups that break themselves, just because I felt like I would never know. Sometimes I find with Earth that I want to play a card, but have to have a certain situation to break my backups, except for maybe Tamar. But I think I am running Tamar, and that's the only backup I think that I'm running that does break itself. But I am running three deleters just to try and break my own backups as well.
So you've got a nice early double boost out, which must have felt pretty good. Enocros and Maria. So LeBlanc is already a 10k brave attacker, and that's without the two other combo pieces on board. Yeah,
the problem I thought with LeBlanc was she did have her 10k, with the double boost from the other two, she would be 12k, but with her ability she breaks one of them, losing the power. So if I'm attacking into something that's huge, which wouldn't bother Joseph's deck, but if I was attacking into something huge and then had to break something, I would be losing power and potentially wouldn't kill the Ford that I was attacking into.
So
but
Joseph's had to take 2 points of damage.
That didn't.
Sorry.
Oh yeah, because of that's fine. Because of the way his standard unit deck was working, he needs to have his board set up. So I was frantically looking for Shantotto, because I knew, although he is running 7, he doesn't feel like it's the best card to play, because he wants to get the standard units out so much, especially now he has Warrior of Light on the board. And then you'll see you've just seen an Aerith going to the break zone, the damage zone, and that feels awful when that happens. I'm sure most of you can feel that as well.
Especially in this kind of deck as well, because you want to have the protection for your combo pieces, so it's not like you've got any kind of long-standing protection. You've kind of got Titan if you run it, maybe Golem if you run it, but Aerith is your sort of the wonder play to keep Logos and Ormi intact.
Yeah, I mean, there would be a few cards that I would change in this deck. For example, I'm running the Mill Riku, because I felt like I could just sit on the LeBlanc or Ormi and Logos combo and just win from that. And let me tell you, you cannot do that. But now if I was to change it, I would run the Opus II Riku, the one that activates all my forwards, so I could swing with Logos and Ormi and not have to worry about someone just removing LeBlanc, because I felt Leviathan was a problem. There's just any removal that didn't involve breaking was a problem.
That would be quite strong in this deck as well, just because it means that you could go aggressive and swing with Logos and Ormi, and then have Ormi back up in case he does play the Shemhazai.
Yeah, that again was another problem. I mean, I am running Sylph as well, just for extra power boosts to activate one forward, but because Joseph runs quite a lot of 1-drops as well, like there was no way I felt like I could block any of his forwards if he was to play Shemhazai. I mean, I could block Mime, I could block Chocobo and War of Light, but the rest, he runs, I believe, the 1-drop Viking, is that I think that's 1-drop.
Yeah, and Knight as well.
And I think that, and Knight as well. So it was just a big struggle against this deck, because I knew I was on a timer. I mean, I don't know if you can see in the damage zone that there's 2 Shemhazai that go into the break zone, damage zone really early, which was a big relief. But even then, I still never felt safe at one point.
I guess in this kind of situation...
So you can see Warrior of Light is...
Sorry.
So, as you can see, I've struggled to get rid of Warrior of Light in this deck because I was lacking the removal. I am running Emperor in this deck, and I feel like that was a big mistake. I would probably choose something more aggressive, maybe like Warrior of Light. Even Light Cloud could be a better card than just what I've got.
I say Light Cloud gives you access to Omni Slash as well, so if you did feel like you were lacking removal, that could be a nice addition. And to be honest, it would have been fantastic against this deck as well, because I could have Omni Slash the Warrior of Light and then even like Meteor Rained and killed the Van or something like that, just to do those little extra bits of damage. Like, it wouldn't have killed Mime or Chocobo, but it would have put him on just 2 forwards, which would have been fantastic for me. So what other Earth forwards do you run, other than LeBlanc, Logos and Ormi in this deck?
So, right at the very end, I had Rydia in my deck, the 3-drop Rydia in my deck from the very beginning, and took it out right at the very end, because I thought Deleter I would want to see Deleter more often. And I was so wrong that I never played Deleter once. I run Guy in there. I run Seraphes to get the Logos and Ormi back, and sometimes LeBlancs. Run Pain for when I play Riku, and Bart's the hero version, because I feel that when you've tapped all your backups, or even when you've attacked with some win forwards, and then you play him down, you activate everything, it puts you in such a strong position, because although he is 5 cost, you're just tapping your backups, so he's normally a bit better than just 5. So he'll come in as like a 3 cost or a 2 cost or something like that, and it's just such a strong play. So as you can see here, Joseph's just summoned loads of forwards, and it ultimately feels bad because I know I am just within Shemhazai range now. So I'm, as I said, just frantically trying to search through my deck. The idea I did have was to swing with LeBlanc and Logos, and then what I would do is use Logos. So I'd use LeBlanc to break Logos, use Sylph, which was in my hand, to activate LeBlanc and block each party this turn. But as you can just see, I've just hit a Leviathan, and that's returned LeBlanc to hand, and means I can't do her ability this turn, and just everything just fell apart from there.
You did manage to get her back out.
So I did manage to get her back out, but as I said, I can't use the ability because she was summoned this turn, and I'm not running a Belias or anything to give her haste.
Just out of interest, how many Shantae were you running in the deck?
2.
Right.
Because every time I ran 1, I saw it in the damage zone, and every time I ran 3, I drew all 3. So I felt like the 2 was the magic number.
Yeah.
So this game here is the first time I actually got all 3 of them out, and I was just explaining the power boosts on all of them. So then Logos, I believe, was 11,000, Ormi was 9,000, and LeBlanc is 14,000.
So we had very, very different strategies when using LeBlanc, because I know that you only managed to do it the once, but your ideology was to get all three out and make them all very, very big problems because they all boost each other. Whereas I was intentionally, if I had a Logos down, I'd keep the Ormi in hand, or if I had an Ormi down, I'd keep the Logos in hand, because I was pretty much using them just as singular boosts, because for the vast majority of decks in our shop, like I was only playing Enocros, so mine was only going to 11k, but 11k Brave was enough, and she has such a target on her back that you're going to be throwing out Logos and Ormi, because she'll be a target for Odins and all sorts. So I just kept one in hand and just kept throwing my one on the field, using that to keep the LeBlanc on the field alive, and then next turn I could replay an Ormi or a Logos and get her back up to 11k, which I kind of felt was enough.
Yeah, no, that was originally my plan for this, but because of me swinging with Logos and hitting the Leviathan on the bounce, which returned LeBlanc to hand, if there was, I wouldn't. Basically, what I was going through my head at the time was, if he party attacks, I'm not going to be able to block everything with LeBlanc because I won't be able to break her. So I had to summon an Ormi literally just to die, like to be thrown under the bus, and it didn't work. Like, as you're about to see in a little bit, that I couldn't recover after the Leviathan on the 6 points of damage. So Joseph's just playing Leviathan there just to get rid of the LeBlanc, which, as I said, like I knew was game probably turn before that when I hit the Leviathan on the 6 points of damage, but there was not really much I could do from here. So I had Sylph in hand with an Aerith activated, but as I said, it's just more as I said, I was just going to struggle from then on.
Quick rulings question. So if he plays Shemhazai forward, it's going to be blocked by a cost of equal or less, and he party attacks, the party attack is still going to be blocked by the cost of the highest card. So if he attacks with like a Chocobo and a Mime,
if you can block one of the forwards, you can block all of them. It's the same with partying with like Lan and a Warrior of Light or something like that. Because you can block Warrior of Light, you can block Lan.
Right.
So Joseph here is trying to cycle for his Shemhazai, as he was saying to me, because Mime parties up with another Mime, it gets double damage, but they're both standard units, so they were both first strike, and it was actually just causing a lot of issues for me. Like Joseph thought he could just get the last point of damage, the 6th point of damage in there, but I managed to get Sylph out and just activate the Logos. Even with that, there was not much I could do with that little surprise that I had. He could have attacked with Warrior of Light to kill my Logos, but he's in such a commanding position, I wouldn't say that was really worth it.
Would he have been able to kill it? Because you got double boost on it, so it would be 9k.
Yeah, but then the Chocobo had the boost from Warrior of Light with first strike, so it was actually like 6,000 or 7,000 with Arc, and then Warrior of Light.
Yeah.
And I'm only 9,000, which I actually didn't realise during the game when I blocked, so I was actually closer to death than I realised. I thought I was just blocking a 3,000 without thinking properly. And I almost just lost my forward without even thinking, and that would have been like an awful situation.
So it's a pretty clever deck. Now that I've had the opportunity, because I didn't get to play against Joseph on the evening, but I really like it. So he's running the Moogles, he's got 2 Mimes to help cycle cards through, so he is really, really trying to get the early to mid-game win. Like, if the game goes long, if you did get Shantaro off and he had to completely rebuild the board, then he would have fallen quite far behind.
Yeah, but as you'll see, like, Joseph runs the 1-drop Varn, which is a really good card. It's just basically just a free card just to swing over. Like if you've got Shemhazai as well, it's going to be a 3 point of damage. He's got the Chocobo. He's got the is that Knight or is that Viking? I can't see from here. But yes, Knight. So all of his forwards cost almost nothing, and he just swarms the field. I've played games against him where I've actually I've Shantoto'd, removed all of his forwards, and then next turn he will play just as many, because Mime keeps him drawing, and this threat of Shemhazai is always there. You just need to basically what you need is a lot of removal for this. So I think this deck would struggle against something like Mono Lightning or something like that. But if you're not playing that, if you're playing a control deck, you are going to struggle against this deck.
It's just because there's so much first strike as well. If you can get rid of Warrior of Light, it kind of lessens the blow a bit. But
yeah,
the partying up Chocobos, even if they don't have first strike, where they buff each other to like 15, 20,000, it's just stupid.
Yeah. So, because I believe there was one point that he attacked with Chocobo, and he was saying how because of all the auto abilities that Chocobo gives everything, he was swinging for like 17,000, 18,000 first strike, and there's nothing in my deck that's going to ever block any of that sort of stuff. So each time he partied, I just let it through. And so I attack here, thinking, knowing that I'm going to lose this game, but I was just trying to see what he would block with, because just to see basically, because if he has Shemhazai, he wins, but also if he party attacks and then attacks with the other two forwards, he wins as well. So it was just, as I said, I think we were just more playing it out just because, just for the camera more than anything, because we would normally just say this is game over now.
It's really unfortunate you had that Emp stuck in hand for so long, because the Emperor in the vast majority of matchups is going to at least have some use, but in this deck it's just going to have no use. Like his only action ability, his only action or special I think was on 7, and that was pretty much it. Yeah, and he just discards 7 just to play Shemhazai. So he's, like, as I said, it was a strong deck that I just knew I was on a time limit for. So there was just nothing I could really do to stop the standard units, and they were just revealing our cards. Cool, right, sweet. Okay, so this is the second part of the video where this is Rich's version of the Leblanc deck, and he decided to go with Ice Earth. So I went with Ice Earth at Mitchell's suggestion. I did dabble with Earth Water, but it didn't really feel that good with the Logos, Ormi and LeBlanc combo, which is really disappointing because I'm a really big water player. But I was really happy with how this deck went. I went 3-1. I probably should have gone 4-0 if it wasn't for a couple of silly mistakes. But it's just interesting that there's multiple different sort of levels to it. So along with the LeBlanc, Logos and Ormi combo, I was also running Capricious Reaper and Warrior of Antiquities, and as you can see, my first play was Phantasmal Harlequin. So there's a bit of mannequins thrown in there, which works really well in some of the matchups. And the other part of it is I was also running Legendary Squall, one Legendary Laguna, the 5-drop, and 3 Legendary Renoas. So it seemed that when people were focusing on one part of the deck, they were kind of neglecting another part of the deck, and it really seemed to work. So I'd happily play this deck again in the future. So you'll see with Kevin's first turn, he's played X-Death and Warrior of Antiquity for his first turn, so it's quite an aggressive start. But you'll see that the mannequins versus mannequins was a bit of an awkward matchup, purely because Kevin was able to run the Emperor, so he was able to shut down my Phantasmal Harlequin, whereas I wasn't running the Emp, and also wasn't running any light cards either, which was a little bit controversial. But so he was able to consistently use Phantasmal Harlequin, or at least threaten to use it to get above my mannequins, which was a little bit depressing at times. It is interesting that you're using the Legendary Squall, because that card sees a lot less play
more recently, but I feel like it's very strong against the mannequins because if they attack, other than Fleet and Flash, which you can trade with and it's a lot less cost, but most of them it will just pop. For example, the Warrior of Antiquity, even with XF on the field, you're doing 6,000 to it and it will just die.
Yeah, and I mean the main reason I included it in the deck was just due to the sort of prevalence of Mono Lightning. There's quite a lot of Mono Lightning in our shop, and it's a very the most meta deck there is out there. And for me, it was a kind of counter to the Alcid combo, to Alcid and Onion Knight, not to have on the field when they play it, but after they've played it and they've got Alcid and Onion Knight out, they're both at 6k. And a lot of people who run Mono Lightning aren't running the Lulu backup for plus 1000 power. So I was if I've got Legendary School on, I can, if they decide to attack, I can potentially 2-for-1 them.
Yeah, I just see that you've got your the 2-drop Time Mage, the Opus 1. Did you consider the Opus 2 Time Mage?
That is dull for loss of haste and first strike, right?
Yes.
Yeah. It didn't really.
Yeah. You don't pay 1 ice. You just dull it.
Yeah, you just dull.
Or 2 ice. Yeah.
It didn't really cross my mind just because first strike isn't something that I'm really worried about. The people that do run Lightning don't really have first strike unless they play Ramza and they're going to use Shout. If it was something that saw a lot of play, I probably would. And to be fair, in this matchup, it probably would have been quite good against Fleeting Flash.
Yeah, so it loses its haste and stuff like that.
Yeah, so it kind of loses its appeal to play.
Yeah.
But I was really happy with Opus 1 Time Mage. The unfortunate thing is that the 5 backups I ended up with in a lot of games was with Shantotto. So it meant that I'd have to use Shantotto to use the effect every time, but it wasn't as awkward as it should have been.
No, I mean, Shantotto is like one of the best cards I feel in the game, not just because it removes everything, but it also gives you the opportunity to just pay for any colour. Is that double bounce on the EX bursts? That must have felt great.
Yeah, it was pretty terrible, and he bounces it again in a minute as well, so I was quite upset at this point.
You must have just thought, oh, it's going to be one of those games.
Yeah. I mean, if it wasn't for the fact that I was 3-1 up, I probably would have just thought, and we're done here. So, do you include Deleter in this deck? I did not. I did up until the point that I decided I wanted to play a bit more into the Mannequins line. So I took them out and replaced them with 3 Warrior of Antiquity. So I kind of lose the utility of being able to break Raoban to then Raoban something again in the future. Or, to Shantotto twice or something like that, but the power I got from Warrior of Antiquity was brutal. There's not many times that I was at 6 points of damage except the game that I lost.
No, it's just because when I remember speaking to you about it, when I was saying about when you have the your Devout on field and with Deleter, and then in response Devout something back onto the field, you're not actually losing anything and gaining 2 forwards.
Yeah,
that's why I suggested Ice Earth. I was just wondering if that is the route you decided to go down.
I did have Devouts in the deck, but in game 1 I got one trapped, so I had it on the field and then they played Emperor and I had 5 backups out, so I couldn't Raoban the Emperor, so I then just had Devout stuck on the field, and from that point onwards I was just thinking, if there's a reasonable chance this person's going to be playing Emperor, I'm not going to play Devout, because it felt horrible, because it blocks the way for Shantotto. I would have loved to have got Shantotto on the field because she had about 6 or 7 forwards out and I had about 3, and I was like, I'll take this any day of the week, but I couldn't get it out just because I couldn't break any of my cards.
Yeah, so I've just seen Kevin's just played the Hero Una backup, which again stops your Renoa, so you've had it bounced 3 times by it and now has just been completely stopped. It seems like it's not Renoa's day in this one.
Yeah, and then I think he Shantotto's her later in the game, which I think he just has a vendetta against Renoa. But I do get her back out, and she was really key to the success of Ice Earth. Not because I was playing 2 FF8 forwards, so she could potentially be 9k. Like it was cool, but the main thing I was using it was just a tempo killer. As in, if they wanted to attack on their turn, I could, and they weren't, then they weren't playing the hero unit or something that removed it from game, that I could dull everything on their side of the field, and a lot of the time they wouldn't be able to get enough active for me to then, on their next turn to then defend against the forwards that I have out. So it forces people to be a little bit more conservative with how they attack, and maybe affects their decision making to a point. So you're about to see a glorious misplay here, as I completely forgot that Phantasmal Harlequin is a mannequin, so I just thought that he played Fleeting Flash for 6k haste. And decided to block.
It was something I overlooked as well, watching the video back, and even when this happened, I wasn't actually aware that Phantasmal Harlequin was a mannequin, but it can even be played with X-Death on the field. So when you summon X-Death, you can actually summon in the Phantasmal Harlequin. It's maybe not as great as play as the Fleeting Flash or Capricious Reaper, but it's always something to think about.
Yeah, that was a bit upsetting to lose the Renoir, and then I have nothing else on my side of the field, so there's no kind of sort of compensation for it. I then can't swing through a couple of points of damage for myself. It was literally just a case of, and she's gone, and now I have to rebuild from nothing. So, there comes the Shantae. And at this point I was kind of hoping that I did play the Devout. Not the Devout, sorry. Deleter. The 3-drop Deleter, just so that I could break a backup and get something useful out. Like break the Railbarn, and then I could maybe play a Jill Nabat and have that kind of, that power that wouldn't be there otherwise. But unfortunately, when I took it out of the deck, I kind of sold off that strategy.
Yeah, I mean, Deleter has its times, but then sometimes you'll draw it and you'll never want to play it just because of having to remove something. There's sometimes a blessing, but it can also be a curse.
Especially if you draw it early and you're under a lot of pressure and you feel like, right, I've got to get like a big body out just to kind of stay in the game, and then you sacrifice a backup that would be really handy, especially if they've got quite a lot of removal. You break a backup, play a 3-drop Deleter, and then they Odin it, and it's like, right, now I've got no forward and I've lost a backup, which means I'm now going to be discarding more in the future, and you end up further behind than where you originally are. I think it's key that it's played in this kind of game state where you've got 5 backups, and it's almost desirable to get one off the field so that you can get that bonus of the having an extra sort of effect come into play.
And the forward, which you actually put me onto, because I wasn't aware that it even has its own special ability, that you can just break a blocking forward. I know this is one of your favourite cards, so when you put me onto it, that it can block when it destroys a blocking forward. So swing with 9k, anything lower is just going to break, anything higher you can break it with its effect. It's such a strong combo, but because you have to break something, bring in Deleted, not many people think about it. They just think about that downside.
Yeah, it's very difficult to get off though, as you say, because if you get Deleter early, the likelihood is that you're not going to play it, in which case it's going to get discarded, which means you've then got one less Northswain strike to get out. But it does force your opponent into a very awkward position of, do I even block this? Do I just let it through? Because if not, I'm going to lose something.
And I can see the Ultimeter is starting to have an effect on the game. It's an interesting card, the Ultimeter, because it's not something I would put in a X-Death mannequin sort of style, because I feel X-Death's quite expensive on its own, but you do get stuff out of it. Whereas Ultimeter with Fleeting Flash, I wouldn't say it works like perfectly together because it nullifies the haste element. But I suppose in a situation like this where you haven't got any of those haste forwards or anything like that, it's a good stall tactic.
Yeah, that's exactly it. It plays into the state of the game. Like obviously X-Death mannequins, like you're kind of going to be playing quite aggressive, Like, there's not much control element to it. You know, you've got haste forwards, they all kind of buff each other. It's all about getting stuff done in the mid game, whereas Ultimisia is kind of built for those control, force things late, you know, kind of decks. So not that it doesn't have a place in this deck, because you say it's at the state of the game as it is. He just wants to stall out until he can get some of his power cards in hand, so he can get that like X Death in hand and stuff like that. But as you say, it's kind of like situational.
It feels like you need to have like a master over the card of know when to play it, when it's an absolute wasted card in your hand, which it does seem like this is exactly the right time to play it, because it is stopping your aggression, and maybe he's stalling out for something, maybe looking for like a Shantotto or something like that, just to put you on the back burner. But while maybe, I don't know how many Ultimisias he runs in the deck, but if you just draw the one, it could be a dead card. But in times like this, it seems like it is just paying off in dividends.
Yeah. I mean, one thing that if anyone was to try and play this deck would, you know, I would potentially advise to try in the future is to maybe drop a Vasoya in there, because there is an element of self-pain that this deck quite likes. So, you know, tap, deal 7k to something, so you're getting the removal that the deck doesn't really have other than in the form of Raban and Mateus. So, sorry.
Are you running the Earth Cecil? When you take damage, deal 5,000?
No, he was in the original deck list, and again, I think I took him out and put deleters in, and then I took deleters out and put Warrior of Antiquity. So there was a lot of chopping and changing.
Well, I suppose with the Phantasmal Harlequin, it makes sense to be more of the... and with the Warrior Antiquity, they sort of synergise well together, and I believe you said you play the... I can't remember what the Cujo one, the Capricious Reaper?
Capricious Reaper, yeah.
Yeah, so it all synergises well. So it's sort of like an Ice Earth Mannequins, which is an interesting build.
Yeah, featuring FF8 characters, featuring the LeBlanc combo, which is actually the purpose of this video.
Yeah.
But this is what I mean, is that I think the deck kind of succeeded because there were these kind of subplots to it of there is this part of the deck and this part and this part, and it was like, okay, so we're going to target the mannequins, and then all of a sudden the Renoas and the Squalls get the chance to sort of flourish, or we're going to worry about the Squalls and Renoas, and then the LeBlanc combo ended up being the part that flourished. So it was quite flexible in how it worked.
It sort of gives your opponent multiple things to worry about.
Yeah.
Which is an interesting idea. Like, as you can see, we just see the Ormi played. So this might have brought up alarm bells for Kevin, because he was aware that some people were playing LeBlanc this week. So as soon as he saw you playing that, maybe he thought that's something else he'd have to worry about.
Yeah, unless I'm just splashing Ormi in for no reason.
just to give the fear into random people.
There was a slight misplay there. Ormi should have come in dulled. But I don't think it affected play in any way. I think the Ultimisia goes through unchecked.
Yeah. Were you suspecting a Shantotto or anything like that with this?
I think he plays it a little bit later in the game. I wasn't really expecting it, but I know I should have, because he's playing Earth and he's, you know, playing this kind of deck that if he does have problems with colour fixing, he could fall behind in board state. So I didn't really expect it, but at the same time I kept a lot of things in hand. I didn't sort of overextend if I didn't need to. Again, there's another slight misplay there where he attacked with Vincent, and I did want to time mage it, but we'd kind of gone past that point, so in the end I just had to Mateus it, which I wasn't planning to do, but you know, any way to get rid of Vincent. To be fair, at the time I wasn't fully aware that play would work, because obviously Vincent can't be broken by your opponent's summons or abilities. I wasn't sure if you were breaking him or whether your opponent putting him in the break zone were like two different things.
So putting isn't the same as breaking, and the way Mateus is worded, it doesn't choose, it puts into the break zone, so it gets around almost every card. I think the only thing that can actually stop it is a ice summoner. I'm not sure if there's anything else really from off the top of my head that can actually stop the card, because I know Carbuncle cannot as well. But even though it says targeting one, technically it's your opponent targeting one.
Yeah,
so
you're leaving the selection up to them.
Yeah,
really.
Yeah, which is the only time that's really relevant though is if they party attacker, then you hit like a Mateus off the EX burst or something, because then they actually do get to choose. Otherwise, it's just you're attacking forward, just put it in the break zone.
So it's interesting that you've just mentioned two cards in the form of the Opus I Ice Summoner that cancel summons and Carbuncle, because that was a decision that I kind of had to make when I was building the deck, was did I want to run the Summoner, or did I want to run Carbuncle, or did I want to run both with a split? And I ended up deciding with the split, was because, again, like the Devout getting trapped by Emperor, I was just thinking if they get an Emp on board, I don't really have that much to get rid of it, in which case I don't particularly want to something on the board where it just becomes a token. It has no effect, it's just kind of trapped there. So I think I played 2 of the Summoners and 1 of the Carbuncle, but I would definitely change that to 2 Carbuncles and 1 Summoner, because I used, not in this game, but in other games I used the Carbuncle a lot more.
That's interesting, because I've always thought that Carbuncle was the worst of the card of the 2, because Summoner can just cancel out a summon, whereas Carbuncle has to have choosing. Or no, I think it is choosing a character you control.
Yeah, in this kind of, if I was playing against Joseph like you had, I could potentially use the Summoners to cancel the Shemhazai, and that's kind of a big part of his deck.
Yeah.
On with all the 1-drops and 2-drops involved. He'd still have loads of first strike and stuff to go over the top and massive chocobo parties and stuff like that, but it would take the Shemhazai element out, because he wasn't running Emp, was he?
No.
Okay.
So Kevin just attacked with an XDF there, which I believe was he not expecting the Phantasmal Harlequin or anything like that, because he then had to Leviathan it. I missed what just happened.
I don't actually know. I think it's because he had the Harlequins on board, which are mannequins that both give X-Death plus 1,000, so he was right, I'm going to swim with X-Death for 10,000, and as you say, I don't think he realised the Harlequin was untapped, and therefore he had to Leviathan. Again, I'm getting stuff bounced to hand.
Yeah, I mean, there are worse cards to be bounced into the hand, sort of like Capricious Reaper does force your opponent to keep losing stuff. Like, I'm sure he'd rather keep bouncing like your Renoas and stuff like that all game long, but when Capricious Reaper's on the field, it's such a struggle to get rid of. Without
especially when you've got 2 on the field. 2 on the field is a really, really great place. I
said the only card that I can think of just that will just flat out remove it is Mateus, and again that doesn't choose, so you wouldn't be discarding. Otherwise, most other cards do target that are on that are removal cards. So you could maybe Cyclops it, but that requires them to block, so it's more situational.
And more mannequins on the way.
Yeah, so it's, is that semblance of a witch?
Yeah, so
the name is?
He throws Logos.
Yeah.
And now his X-Death is at 11k, so I can't really...
yeah, it's a bit of a problem. And then we'll see the star of the show go into the damage zone.
Yeah, I don't really think I played her. I feel really bad that she's like the focal point of the deck this week, but it just didn't really feel relevant to play her. I think I had her out when he Shantotto'd. I think, maybe. But I promise you, in the other game, she was played and she was strong. But it was the same as in the previous video I said, where I wasn't using both Logos and Ormi to boost her. I was just keeping Logos on the field or Ormi on the field and the other one in hand, because I knew I'd have to put one to the break zone and dull her to keep her alive, or people would just straight out try and kill Logos to make her weaker and stuff like that. So I was making sure that I didn't have both on the field, so that if I did get board cleared, it wouldn't feel quite so bad.
Yeah, there's nothing worse than finally getting a 3-piece combo out and then just someone Shantottoing or Cloud of Darknessing your board.
Or legendary Valforing.
Yeah, that as well. I mean, we played. There's a few of us who played the Leblanc combo, and I think it was only twice did it ever happen that we had all 3 pieces out. And one of them was in the previous video against Joseph. And it was a sort of arms in the air moment that we actually completed the set.
It's a bit of a dream play, but it becomes a bit more consistent when you're running Wind, because you can use Brother to search up the missing pieces. I know that's not the direction that you went in, but it could potentially make it a bit more consistent in, you know, saying you've got LeBlanc and Logos on field, you can then dig the army out as opposed to just waiting until you draw it out, kind of thing. So
in this deck, are you running any light or dark cards?
No, I'm not.
You're not running any?
I did consider running possibly Warrior of Light, just for that extra bit of removal. I unfortunately sold my Light Clouds as I was in need of money, so I've now kind of closed that strat for the future. But I did consider running Warrior of Light, and then I just decided that I'd rather stick to the strengths of what was currently in the deck.
Well, the only reason I was asking is because if you were running Warrior of Light, you could run Hashmal, and you could change your forwards into mannequins and then give them the boost with Phantasmal Harlequin, or you could change them into Warrior of Lights and reduce the damage that they were taking.
Yeah, definitely. But then, again, I'd have to start messing about my summons, and I was quite comfortable. I think I've run 3 Mateus, 1 Carbuncle, 2 Golem, and 2 Titan. And the Titan was kind of essential for situations where you really wanted to keep something alive, like if someone paid for the Capricious Reaper and empty-handed themselves, you can Titan it, and then it's then a problem in the future. They haven't actually dealt with it yet, or if they've, you know, play something to and then discarded the extra card, so pay 4 for Odin, discard the card because they've targeted it, and then you Titan it, it's the same thing. Like, they've got to deal with it again in the future. So I wouldn't really take Titan out. Golem was really helpful for just combat tricks on blocking, especially if they felt like they were taking a favourable situation, and then you switch it around and say, right, well, I've got plus 4,000 power now.
I suppose it's like great against the legendary Squall, because as Kevin, you can see there, Kevin feels like he's the biggest threat on the board, even with the 2 Capricious Reapers. So being able to swing into your opponent and then they block thinking that they're going to trade, and then you Titan it to keep it alive, seems like a really strong play. Yeah,
the reason why I did that is because Legendary Squall was the only thing I had to really answer his X-Death, unless I could get the big LeBlanc out. But in this scenario, like, Capricious Reaper isn't going to do anything, Logos on his own isn't going to do anything, but Squall could trade with him, and that's a very favourable trade for me because it's a 3-cost trading into a 6-cost, so that's, you know, very, very favourable.
So I can see here that you're overlaying them. Is this, do you party attack here, or?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I can see you party attacking. Is there a reason behind that? Is it just because you're worried about semblance of a witch, or like being boosted with Phantasmal Harlequin?
Yeah, I think if I attacked... To be fair, this was the point in which it became really awkward, was when Kevin played the Emperor, because it meant that my Harlequin was useless. It was just a token for generating Earth CP. But his Harlequins he could use to his advantage, so that's why I ended up having to party swing, is the fact he can make Semblance 9k, and my Reapers was stuck at 8k because of the Emperor. So she,
and X-Death gives her a thousand boost as well.
Oh yeah,
which obviously that's why they've traded, obviously.
Yeah.
It does feel horrible that I feel Emperor affects Earth a lot more than it affects most other decks, just because they require themselves to be broken, which is generally an action ability.
Yeah.
And it just leaves you with all these cards that you can't use.
Especially,
like with I was
just saying, especially if you're running stuff like Deleter, like LeBlanc, because then you can't use the LeBlanc can't be broken this turn kind of thing. Death penalty, it shuts off. monks. In this case, it's shut off the Time Mage, which I know is ice, but it was a really, really big deal at this point.
Yeah, as I said, it is a very strong card, and I think it's at least it's flavour of the month at least at the moment. But it probably is one of the strongest ones, if not the strongest. Seeing especially seeing as like Cloud has fallen out of favour.
Yeah, I mean, just because there's such little ways to deal with it, is that you either have to have a summon that breaks, like Odin, or you have to have something that has a strong enter the field ability, because a lot of people that play Emperor won't put it in a situation which is going to be vulnerable. They won't attack with it, they won't block with it or anything like that. You know, they could attack and accidentally hit a 7-drop Odin or a Mateus, or, you know, they could block and then you play Belias or something like that. They won't put it at risk because it is such an important card to a particular deck strategy, in which case your only real way of dealing with it is from hand and either a summon or a strong enter the field ability.
Yeah, which I would feel very safe against you if I played Emperor, especially seeing as I see the Raubon on the field. Like, even if you did play deleters, you would have to play the deleter first before you do the Raubon. So you would also pretty much get a warning of it was coming to hit the Emperor, which then maybe you could find something to protect yourself with, like maybe a Titan or something like that.
Yeah, Kevin was playing Titan, so that was the other thing I kind of had to keep a track of. I think he's played all 3, he may have only played 2, but you know, that if he had it in hand, I could potentially waste my only way of dealing with the Emperor.
Yeah. So they just saw that Kevin, I believe, tried to Odin LeBlanc, but then you Titaned in response?
Yes.
Just because LeBlanc is going to be the big threat on the board. I believe she's 11k now, is it?
Yes.
Which is just a bit better than all the other forwards. What's X Death on? He gains 1,000 for every mannequin, is it?
Yeah, so I think he was on 11.
11 as well.
But I think I had Golem in hand, so I was trying to bait the block with X Death.
Oh, okay.
But he didn't bite.
But then you've got the legendary Squall that can trade as well, which then will get rid of either Emperor or the X-Death, which is the big threat on board.
Yeah, the reason why I kind of was going a little bit more aggressive here was because the next card I had in hand was Gabranth, and Gabranth was pretty much just shut up shop at that point. I'm at 5 points of damage, so he would be at 14k. I'd almost intentionally want to take another point of damage just to make him 15k with Brave, and I think he just scoops here. I think he tries to just sort of fake a play just to see if I would do something silly.
I mean, you could even attack with Capricious Reaper, and although no, I suppose with Emperor on the field, you were just going to trade it, wouldn't you?
Yeah. So I mean, Squall was the only one I could realistically swing with.
And you want to keep your logos on the field for LeBlanc being stronger.
Yeah.
And then it was just the Gabranth just became a huge issue for him.
Which is great, because I've ever since I've started playing the game, I've always liked Gabranth, and I've always included him as a one-off in Earth decks that I play, and I've never played him in a situation where he's useful. It's just the kind of thing that you either draw him when you don't need him, i.e. early in the game, or when you don't have lots of points of damage, or you don't draw him and you lose the game before you see him, and he could have been a really, really useful card in one particular situation. So I was happy I got to play him.
So Kevin swings here with a Fleeting Flash, but I don't think he's aware of the power of Gabranth now, because many people are aware of the legendary version, but that it costs less to play the more damage you've taken. But this one, I don't think he was aware that it gains 1,000 power for each damage point you've taken and across.
Yeah, so I could have blocked with Gabranth, but I really didn't want to. Just because he could boost her using the Harlequins up to 13k, and my Gabranth's only 14k, and I was like, he may have something in hand. So I just decided to throw the Reaper under the bus, and it's at this point that he just scooped. He just said, yeah, we're done here.
Yeah. I mean, it did seem like a strong deck that Kevin had, and it was definitely interesting, especially with the Ultimecia. So it would be good to see it again. Right, and I believe that's the end of the videos now. So please subscribe to the channel, and if you have any suggestions of Fringe cards that we could play, or any comments, just leave a comment in the section below. So that's goodbye from me.
And goodbye from me. Thanks for watching.